Hello and welcome to Buy Africa, the show where we focus on investment opportunities around the continent. I'm Tsepo Modiba, and thanks for joining me. Tonight, I'm joined by Dumi Jerry, Chief Executive Officer at AfriCatalyst, for a look at Africa's need for clean energy and the investment opportunities the gap creates. Dumi, clean energy, well, let's actually start, before we even get into clean energy. There's a strong case for Africa needs energy, period, yes?
Indeed.
I guess, are we seeing a lot of investments in that space on the continent?
We are seeing investments, but when we look at the need that exists, the investments are almost like a drop.
Right.
When we look at the requirements that we need.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's then move into the clean energy space. What's the case for it? What's really sparking this demand for clean energy on the continent?
So a couple of factors really, and I think the first one exists around the fact that the projections tell us by about the year 2050, the population of Africa will have almost doubled.
Right.
Now, we don't have the 2/3 of the infrastructure that we need to be able to meet that by the year 2030 is not in place at this point.
Okay.
Right, so that's the one angle. And then the other angle is when you look at what is currently going on in the other African countries, women and girls face the drudgery of carrying firewood on their heads,
right,
or using charcoal for cooking purposes and so on and so forth. And what the downside to that is it leads to indoor pollution. And across sub-Saharan Africa, about 600,000 people die every year from indoor pollution.
Right.
So there's a case also for public health.
Right.
And that's what this speaks to.
Now, I guess the other side of the fence is clean energy as opposed to burning coal or any of those other type of traditional power generating resources. Is it's expensive. Should Africa, this is a contentious question, but should Africa not focus just on traditional methods rather than going into the clean energy space yet?
Well, I think at first go, it may look like it's very expensive to try and implement clean energy.
Right.
But in the long run, it results in cheaper energy for everybody else.
Right.
Because currently the poor, and those are the ones that are affected greatly on the continent, they actually pay far much more than the world's richest. In terms of electricity. So the case is around the fact that at a particular point, it's going to become cheaper for the people to be able to access electricity than it is currently, if we go the clean energy route.
Right.
So that's the bigger case for it now.
And let's talk the technologies that are being implemented on the continent. Any examples of where the focus has been on the clean energy side of things?
Yeah, so there's been quite a number of things that have been going on across the continent. But I'll give you, I think, 4 examples in quick succession. So we look at, for example, in Morocco, there's what they call the Nour solar plant. So this is like the world's largest concentrated solar plant. Now, the capacity that it has, so the phase 1 only started in February 2016. It's producing about 160 megawatts.
That's big.
Very big. And as is always the case with most of these projects, they happen in phases. So phase 2 and 3, they're expected to be completed in the next, 2 years or so.
Right. And
upon completion, it's a total of 580 megawatts. And that is going to feed, or take care of, rather, of 1.1 million households in Morocco.
Right.
So that's just one example. And then another example that I can give you is the Gibe 3 project in Ethiopia. Now this is hydroelectric. It feeds straight from the Omo River, about 300 kilometers or so from the capital city, Addis Ababa. Total capacity is going to be 1,870 megawatts. And that's supposed to come to life in the 4th quarter of this year.
Right.
So well, those are just two. Or the third one that we can look at is the Rwanda solar field. It's about 8.5 megawatts. Now, the number sounds small, but when you look at the households that are impacted by it, it's going to take care of about 250,000 households, and that's a lot. And the last one that we can look at is the Lake Turkana project that's going on in Kenya,
right,
in the northeast of the country. Total capacity is projected to be about 310 megawatts. So they are making use of the wind turbines,
right,
and about 100 of them are expected to be on site in the next month in September. Upon completion, the whole project will have about 365 of those, each with a capacity of producing about 850 kilowatts. So totally, they were looking to add on to the Kenya national grid by about 18%.
Right.
So
which is significant.
It's very big. It's very big.
Now, you've touched a little bit of wind, you touched solar, hydro.
Yeah.
Is there moves on the continent to implement some of the other renewable technology that we've seen, biomass as an example, waste to energy? Is there those sort of moves, or are we still staying to, I guess, the traditional forms of renewables?
No, I think for now, majority of the talk seems to be happening on these ones that I've just mentioned. So that's your solar, your wind, and hydro. There have been discoveries in one or two countries that are experimenting with the use of using the waste energies as a means of converting it to clean energy.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen a heavy penetration of that yet. Right. But no doubt that with time, improved technologies and all those things, it will take up as well.
Okay, let's talk numbers and funding, the exciting stuff for some of us anyway. The current projects that you've mentioned, what's the source of funding for that? Are those privately funded? Has it been government funding? What's really the structure around it, and how do investors take advantage of it?
So the majority of them have been almost on a percentage based. So percentage is private, a certain percentage is government, and together they drive this thing. If we were to zoom back to the Rwanda solar field, now this was funded by the US initiative led by President Obama, which he declared, I think it was last year or the year before, when he hosted all the African presidents. And the idea behind that is to the US wants to support Africa in extending the grid by about 30,000 megawatts.
Right.
So there is a fund that has been set up for that.
Right.
And investors, some of them are tapping into that and linking with that and seeing how best they can leverage off each other in pushing some of these things.
Are we seeing some private equity players going into the space, looking to fund some of these projects?
Indeed. Yeah, indeed. So the Morocco one, for example,
yes,
it's funded by the guys in the private sphere. And they make up the majority of the percentage there.
Is there scope? Okay, the first question is the scope. Scope, I guess, is easy. And then is it likely that we are going to see some of these businesses that are in the green space actually coming to the IPO market and raising capital for these investments in that manner? Is there any talk of that?
I think so. It's a model that quite a number of guys frankly haven't looked at, but it's a model that has been tried by other guys in other industries, and I don't see any reason why it shouldn't have a spillover effect to the clean energy sphere.
Right.
Just to divert a bit, you look at the guys that are in the banking industry, like your Atlas Mara and them. They managed to raise money off the New York Stock Exchange, the London Stock Exchange, and with that money they're doing quite a number of acquisitions across the continent. So if we take the same model and apply it on the energy sphere, there's no reason why it shouldn't work, because the need is there. And I mean, obviously in Africa, when you look at the problems, that's when you see the opportunities. And shortage of clean energy is a huge problem. So there is huge opportunity. So it just needs one person who drives it and sure many will follow suit.
And I guess the investment case, as you've laid out, is very clear. So if that came to the market, there should be a decent demand for it.
They definitely should be. And I think also what we also got to keep in mind is that at the last World Economic Forum, the Africa leg in Lusaka in May, the president of Africa Development Bank, Akina Adesina, he mentioned something that we've got to be impatient with developing Africa forward.
Right.
And there's no reason why by 2025 Africa should not be lit. And so that makes a case that African Development Bank, for example, is willing to take the lead, and everybody else can also follow and work hand in hand in addressing all these issues.
Okay, let's leave it there. Thanks to my guest, Dumi Jerry, Chief Executive Officer at AfriCatalyst. That's all from Buy Africa this week. Remember to follow me on Twitter. That's @Modiba_Tsepo. And our guest has also got a Twitter handle. That's Dumi Jerry. Oh, sorry, @Dumi_Jerry. And send us your thoughts about the show using the hashtag BuyAfrica. For myself and the team, goodbye.